Here we go. Livy, Book 1.15. Belli fidinatus. These are genitives. Contagione. It's ablative. So by the contagion of the Fidanus war, something's going on. We have in ritati venetium. This is a genitive enemi. So here's our nominatives. The in ritati enemi. So this is the irritated minds, you might want to say, or irritated, well, pricked up, excited minds of the Vientes in English. So they were irritated by this contagion of the Fidinatian War, as you want to call it. For the Fidinates, quoque also fuerunt were Etruscans. Okay, and we have et consanguinate, which means and they were blood relatives. So you might want to say both with this et because you have et, which as a correlatives means both. By blood, for they were also Etruscans, and quod because ipsa propinquatis. This is the nearness or the proximity itself of the place where this war is going on, obviously. And we have a clause here: si Romana arma omnibus infesta. So if the Roman arms infesta were hostile, omnibus to all, finitimus to all the neighbours, essent. And here we have this shut out verb from this clause. And of course, the nearness of this place where it was happening was stimulating them, which is imperfect. So there's a number of causes here which were making them angry. In fines Romanus is his appositions in the plural accusative. So into the Roman fiends, the Roman lands, the Roman territory, ex cucurrented. And you can see that's plural, and it's active, and it's a reduplicated perfect. It goes cucurre from running. And so they ran into the Roman lands, or they made raids. Popula bundi. This is a nice little word here. This is for ravishing, basically, and stealing stuff. Magus quam, more than, justae more belli. More than juste more, that's mores is the customs, and justae is the just or the normal rights of war, belli. So they came to the Roman territories, did a bit of depopulating and stealing more than just an outright war. Itaque, and so accordingly, non castris positus, with not having positioned the camp, not having placed a camp, you might want to say, so they didn't cast a camp or make camp. Non expectato hostium, which is genitive, exercito, and not in the waiting or by waiting for the army. This is the fourth declension of the enemy. So they didn't pitch a camp, they didn't wait for the arrival of the enemy, but raptan ex agris praedam. Ex agris means from the fields, it's plural. Praedam raptam, which is the booty which they have raptured, that which they have seized. Portentes, here's our present participle. They were carrying, portentes. You can see from the NC it's a present participle. While these things here were in the ablative, this is a present participle. And they redierade to ve. They returned to re, carrying the seized booty from the fields. Romanus, this is a singular but meaning for a group of the Romans. The Romans, contra, postquam, we've got an adverb here after the preposition, which you can just ignore. So contra the enemy, so the Romans against the enemy, and of course it takes the accusative. Postquam, after they could non-invenit, after they didn't find them in agris, because remember they've gone ex agris with their booty. Dimicatione ultimae, this is an ultimate fight basically, or something. Instructus, so the Romanus were instructus, they were drew up, and we have the enclitic qui, and they were intent, which means this is their intentions, their bearing, or where they were making their way, and they transited the Tiber. Tiber's the river. So they couldn't find the enemy in the fields. They were drawn up and ready for battle, and they crossed the Tiber. Okay, we'll have a daily dictionary for dimicatione, which means dimicatio, a fight, battle, combat, encounter, contest, struggling, and strife. So it was obviously this was the battle, and it's used here in the dative. So they were drawn up for this ultimate fight. Quem, whom, postquem, after, castra, the camp, ponere was being placed or positioned, and ad urbum, and to the city. Here we have a future, accesurum, that are about to approach to the city, the venientes. Here's our nominative. So the venientes order veronted. This is a shortened version of veront, the third plural. So the venientes, they had heard, postcram after they had heard, that the Romans had placed a camp and were about to come to the city. They egressi. This is a past passive plural going with vientes egressi. They came out obviem so that they could meet. Ut potius, so that rather they could decernerent. They could decide this. Here the AK is in the ablative. So rather they could decide this in battle. Quam than inclusi detectus monibus qui demarcet. Rather than they could fight them inclusi, shut in inside of detectus, which is just the roofed building, and the monibusses of the walls. So they wanted to fight them out in the open rather than from inside of their buildings. Ibi, there, verbus nulla arte adjutus. As you see, this is, besides the nulla, we have ablatives or datives, since they look the same. But here, with his verbus, his strength, there was no skillful help to his strength. Basically what you want to say is there was no cunning or craft helping his strength. Tantum, merely or only, the veterani robor exercitus. Now that's a fourth, so it could be a genitive. So robor is the ablative. So with his strength of his veteran army, you'd probably want to say here. So there was no crafty skill helping him, merely the strength of his veteran army. Rex Romanus, he's the Roman king in our position here, that's the nominative. He victored, he conquered. Say, persecutusque, and persecuting or following, fusos the routed, hostes enemy, these are, for fusos, hostes go together, to the wall. So he followed these routed enemy to the wall, which is their wall. The Urbe valida, with a strong city, it basically means in the ablative. With the city strong by its murus, by its walls, another ablative plural, and sito, and it was situated or positioned ipso itself, munita, and the site itself was well fortified, and the city with its strong walls. So he abstinuated. So he abstained basically from attacking the city, it looks like. And rediens, this is the present participle, he returned, returning its present participle. He devastated the fields, the agros, devastated them. Magus, more, for this it comes behind a genitive gerund. More for the act of revenging, quam than studio with a desire of booty. So he knew it would be a hard job to get in there because the place was well defended with walls. So he devastated the fields as an act of revenge, more than just wanting booty. But he'd already beaten them, so that was a bonus. Iaque clade, he is female, and they look ablative. And so with this clado, this disaster, horde minus not less quam than the adversa pugna, then the battle had gone badly, had gone adverse. Subacti, that would be our verb. The vientes, these are the subjects, they pacem petitum orates Romam mittunt. So the vientes, they mittunted, they sent their orators, these are probably delegates who could speak well. Romam, it doesn't take the ad, it just takes the accusative, so it means to Rome. Petitum pacem. We have a verb of motion here in sending, and this is for the sake of peace. So they sent their speakers, the subact, getting peace. Agri parte, multatis. So parte is with a part, agri of their fields, multatis. This is the word for, it's not multa, it's to do with being fined. Usually it's got some pecuniary value, but remember they were subacti, which is a past participle going with vientes. They were subdued, so they were fined part of their land in this settlement in centumenus, and for 100 years in dutia. This is a truce basically. Date was given. Haec, these things firme almost Romulo regnante. These are ablatives. Domi milite gesta. So these things are the gesta, the things done domi and milite, at home and abroad, or as you want to say in war and in peace, with Romulus regnate, when Romulus was ruling, and firme justice. These are almost all of the main things which were, I guess, done. Quorum of which, nihil, nothing, absonum, quorum absonum. Nothing sounds too, it's to do with sounding, nothing sounds off, basically, of the fide divinae originus. So nothing's dissonant to the trust put in the divine origin, and we have the enclitic qui, and in the divinitas post mortem, credita fuit. Credite, sometimes it takes the dative. It looks like he was this divinity after death. So this is going back to Romulus. So this doesn't sound too dissimilar to what happened, the divine origin of the city of Rome, and the divinity of what's believed of Romulus after his death. Non animus in regno avito reciperando. That's another gerund. So, nor into his spirit or courage in recovering, in recuperandoing the avito, which is his grandfather's kingdom. If you remember the story. So, this in is taking the ablative. So, nor his courage in recovering his grandfather's kingdom, non condende urbis concilium, and not with his concilium, not with his plan of founding the city, contende. Again, we were talking about the divine origin, so this is how he's founded the city, and non bello in pace fermende. We see again, we have the nd versions of the verb. So, and nothing to the, and it speaks of his courage in recovering his grandfather's kingdom, of founding his city, and of affirming or strengthening in war and peace. Yeah. So the non bit just means this this didn't disturb his spirit, basically. It's a short book today, so and ab ille from him, and for from him profecto. I don't think that's from profiscor. That looks like assuredly the adverb. So assuredly for from him, datus viribus, the strength that was given from him, basically. Tantum, so much value it, so much strength. Again, going with the viribus, which means strength. So the city, Abbey, from him, received so much strength that in quadrinca deinde, so that then in quadrinta enos, in 40 years, haberet, it would have tutem pacem, a safe peace. Multitudinae tamen, so tamens nevertheless, gratio fuit quam. So he was gratio as a comparative. So he's more endeared basically to them, more favoured to the multitude than patribus, than their fathers. Longe and by far, anti in longe just means by far before alios. So much, and so by far before the others, he was most acceptimus militum. The militum is of his soldiers. So by far before others, he was most received with his courage and dearness, gratior, remember. So the multitude loved him more than their own fathers, and by far the minds of the soldiers and the hearts of the soldiers, they accepted him much before the others. Tricentos armatos. So this is 300 armed guards. Add, this looks like it for a purpose, to the custodium. So these were accusative plurals. To the custody of his body, so his bodyguards. Quos, which is the relative here, which, here we go, appellavited. This T here, since I'm vandalising it, is the nominative. So they were called the caleras. So these were for the bodyguarding of his body, 300 armed men, which were called caleres, not in bellum solum, not in war alone, in with the ablative, but even in parque, habit. Actually, this is probably what you'd consider the main nominative bit, taking on this accusative, and this accusative, and that genitive. And this is a little clausulate in the middle. Okay, done.